All right, so I've grabbed a couple parts and we're going to look at them, just do some quick measurements, still using the scale. We're going to be working with just the 10 thousandths and the 100 thousandths sections on here. As I look at this piece, I just lay my scale on it. As I want to measure it, I want to make sure that I'm laying this thing on there nice and square. I want to try to make a measurement across like this. It's going to skew my reading. I want to make sure that I'm nice and lined up with this. If I can go all the way to an edge, I'm in pretty good shape this way. As I look at this part, I can see roughly this thing's 3 inches long. As I come down in there, I can see that pretty clearly if I go all the way to the edge of this thing. I can use this scribe just to make sure I'm going to the edge. 3 inches is where I'm sitting at. I know that I'm nice and straight. Another way that I can do it is I can just butt it up right on the end of this thing. And so as I come through here, I can hold it, look at it, and if I can see it from a kind of clear perspective, getting right here, I'm at exactly 3 inches. And so maybe if I move it up this way, can come in here and get straight up and down on this thing, should be able to see that I am right at 3 inches long there. So 3 inches as I go across, and then as I measure this way, I'm at 2 inches as I go through there. Now again, the increments do get smaller, but as your eye starts to get trained in on these things, you're going to be able to see how easy that is to see. And so here I can make sure that I'm nice and square up against that edge. And so even though the perspective is off just a little bit, I can tell when I'm looking at it here as I'm getting right down over the top of it that is 2 inches. So if I want to be able to measure out hole placement on that, I can do that as well. Just pull back just a little bit out of here. So I've got my part squared up, kind of laid up on here, and whether I'm looking at the fraction side or if I'm looking at the 100 thousandths or the 10 thousandths side, again, I can just come over here, make sure that I'm nice and square to the edge. This is my 0 side, my hole placement here. Middle of the part, I'm at 1.5 inches, so that's 1 inch, 100 thousandths, 200 thousandths, 3, 4, 500 thousandths, or 1 inch or 1.5 inches is what that is. That's to the center of that hole. Come down this way, and same thing as I come through here, I'm at 1 inch. So there's 800 thousandths, 900 thousandths, 1 inch. That's the center location of that hole. So as I come through, I can just kind of do a quick visual check on all of the holes here. So here I have these 2 holes going along this line. It is clearly not at 700, and it is not at 800. 800 is past the center point. This hole from this edge, 750 thousandths is placement for it. As I come down here, I am 1 inch, 2 inch, 2 inches 100, 2 inches 200, 2 inches 250 thousandths for hole placement. And perspective might be off just a little bit for you as you look at it and kind of just viewing it on the camera, but that is where it's sitting at placement wise. So 2 inches 250 thousandths as we go through there. That's the center point of that. We can use this just for quick reference measurements. Obviously this is not precision measurements as we go, and so I can measure this out at 1 inch on this step, 1.5 inches for this next step. And so I lay this down, and I know as I come through here, I can see we're at 500 thousandths. So that's 1/2 inch as I'm looking at that. I can also use the other side of this, my broader dimensions or rougher dimensions, 500 thousandths. Here in this slot, take a look at this slot. It's past the 800 part, but it's not quite to the 900 part. So I want to come down and take a look at it. I want to be able to see real clearly what's going on with the width on that thing. And then hopefully you'll be able to see what we have here. Try and zoom in just a little bit more. I'm at 800, 850, 860, 870. Now I'm in there a little bit crooked, but it's 875 thousandths for that slot. We haven't quite reached the 880 mark. And so see how I can see even 10 thousandths increments. I can see that in this as I lay it down in there. Now if I'm going to measure this, I need to make sure I'm using the proper tool for this. This just gives me an idea, estimation of where I'm supposed to be. This is not going to be used for any type of substitute for a gauge block, for a caliper, for any type of inside measuring tool. It's a little bit harder when we get to diameters, as we do have to kind of look at them and kind of work it in the best that we can. This hole I know is 750 thousandths. So as I come through there, I go 700, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and that's before I get to the chamfer. So right as I go down into that hole, so beginning of chamfer, beginning of chamfer. So hole is 750 thousandths. Again, placement-wise, I can kind of eyeball where the center point of that is. And these are just, again, quick checks. This is not what I'm going to use to do any kind of quality check on my parts. So if I go in, I take a look at maybe some round parts that I've done. I can check diameters. And so remember, a diameter is just going to be twice the radius. And so if I were to measure from edge to edge across this part, that would give me my diameter of it. So I'm going to lay this in here, and I'm going to just check and lay this down right across there. So I can tell by looking at this, as I look down on there, I'm not quite 3 inches 400. So I'm going to come in, bring my other side in. That's my 10,000 side. And as I look down through there, you might have a little hard time seeing it as it focuses in. Maybe I can set it down on top of it and see it just a little bit better. So as I come to that edge, I don't quite reach it. So I know that I'm more than 350 thousandths. I'm less than 400 thousandths. I can count down backwards. So 390, 380 tells me that I'm about 3 inches, 375 thousandths, or 3 3/8 on that diameter is what I am. And so to know the radius of that, I go from the center point out to the diameter, or I can take my diameter divided by 2, and that'll also give me my radius on that. A lot of times when I'm just measuring out a student's etching, I'll take, after they've used a G47 on the Haas machine, and they've done their engraving, and I know about where I need it to be. I know about the placement of it, and I'm just checking their size. I know that it's supposed to be less than 3 inches long. I can just do a quick check on this and see clearly this is less than 3 inches long. And then I can also look at the height of that and see that it's under 200 thousandths. Actually, it looks like more like about 150 thousandths in height on those letters. So we can get in there pretty good on that. So if you look at that, start of the N to the end of the N is right there at 150 thousandths. And so that's able to tell me what size that is. And so that's a really good way to just measure my etching as a scale. I don't want to use it for much more than that. It's great for sawing, great for rough dimensions, but that's about as far as I want to go with that. So as we start to begin to just kind of look at measurements, the scale or the steel rule is definitely our starting point. So as you guys saw, you want to use a scale to get those increments in. Anything longer than the 6-inch, we've got scales of all kinds of different increments and values. The one that I have here, zoom out just a little bit. This is a 12-inch scale. So scales don't have to be 6 inches. They don't have to be 3 inches, 4 inches. They can go 12 inches, 24 inches, 36 inches, 48 inches. You can go all the way up to a 6 foot on a scale if that's what's needed. For most of our projects, anything under 12 inches is going to be able to take care of what we need. All right.